Looks like it's working. Well, very good. I will try to keep this as brief as I can because I know you're probably a very busy man running a school. You're superintendent of the school?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. So I had sent you these beforehand. I don't know how much you had a chance to familiarize yourself with it, but I'll just go ahead and shoot away here. All right. How did you get your start in education?
Back in the mid-1980s, I was going to the seminary studying to be a Catholic priest, and I ended up leaving the seminary, and the local pastor and principal of the Catholic grade school for my parish said, well, you've left the seminary, but that must mean you'll make an excellent Catholic school teacher, so we're going to, even though you don't have your bachelor's degree yet, we're going to just bring you over and you're going to teach 7th grade in a self-contained classroom with 63 students. And so my first year teaching was 7th grade, self-contained, all subjects, to 63 7th graders at St. Thomas the Apostle in Los Angeles. Then I spent a number of years, ended up eventually finished my bachelor's degree and went to get a master's, but was and teaching credentials, but stayed in the Catholic school system for quite some time, and then transitioned to Los Angeles Unified and taught in Los Angeles Unified for a while, and then to San Bernardino City Unified for a little while, and then eventually got a phone call from Governor Brown suggesting that I might be a good person to help him with the Oakland Military Institute, and
so here you
ended
are.
up going to Oakland.
Interesting. So why did you choose a charter school, and what was your interest in working at a charter school?
I mean, frankly, the charter school sort of chose me. I mean, Governor Brown called me about the military charter school. I had been involved, my whole life had been involved with a youth leadership development program called the California Cadet Corps, and the Oakland Military Institute was part of that program. Back in 2000, 2001, I was part of a team of folks that did some initial advisory work with Governor Brown on that school. And though my involvement was very, very limited initially, eventually at the end of the 2006-2007 school year, or at the end of the 2006 year, the governor called and asked if I would be willing to come to Oakland. And so really the school sort of picked me.
It's interesting. So you were involved with OMI pretty much from the start in some capacity.
Well, I was involved in an initial team of people that had done some consulting work. I really wasn't involved in the first 4 to 5 years of the school. After the school got started, I really was not directly involved at all. It wasn't until 2006 that the governor made contact with me, and then he was then the Attorney General, and we talked about the possibility of me coming there full time.
That's interesting. Okay, so you worked there for a number of years as superintendent, and then how did North Valley Military Institute come about?
So one of the things that the governor had asked me to work on in my tenure as the Oakland superintendent was to replicate this military school model. He believes in the model. He thinks the model is a very important model, a very successful model. And so at one point he was talking about, gee, wouldn't it be great if we had 50 of these up and down the state? And so a group of educators from the North Valley Charter Academy contacted me in, really it was the end of 2011, beginning of 2012, saying, we're running this charter school in Los Angeles Unified. It's a successful school, but enrollment is struggling, and we don't necessarily have a niche. We're trying to be a leadership development school. We've heard about this military model. We think there might be a good nexus here between what we're trying to do in terms of leadership and character development and this military model. And so they came up to the school a number of times and eventually decided that they really wanted to replicate the model in Los Angeles. I consulted with Governor Brown, met with him multiple times about this prospect. He said he was absolutely supportive of the idea, and so I worked with the leadership team here at the school to take the existing Oakland charter and for all intents and purposes lift the exact charter and create a new charter for the Los Angeles Unified School District school, which we did. Governor Brown was instrumental in contacting individual board members to solicit support, and eventually we got a unanimous vote from LA Unified, 6-0. Dick Vladevic wasn't at the board meeting that day, but we got a 6-0 vote in favor of allowing the school to renew its charter under the new provisions of the North Valley Military Institute.
So the school had existed for some time, was it?
About 13 years it had
Okay.
existed, as first as Imagine Academy and then as the North Valley Charter Academy.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So are you affiliated with other charter schools? Is it part of a bigger organization, or?
No, we're really
Separate.
our own separate entity.
Okay, interesting. Let's see here. What challenges have you faced during the process of making the conversion from the previous school to NVMI?
Well, I mean, there are always going to be challenges. I don't think there were any, there really were no significant unanticipated challenges. We knew that there would be concerns in Los Angeles Unified about several key provisions of the charter. We knew that, for instance, with regards to student enrollment, one of the components of student enrollment in the charter is that students must successfully complete an entrance camp, which familiarizes them with the military culture of the school. So they learn how to march, they learn yes sir, no sir, yes sergeant, no sergeant, they learn how to wear a uniform, how to demonstrate military courtesy, the customs of the school, and that was a requirement for successful enrollment in the school. And we knew that Los Angeles Unified would have some concerns about making sure that that requirement was still faithful to the provisions of the charter law. At the time, it still allowed this to truly be a school of choice. And so, we had a number of meetings with LA Unified, and we ended up signing an MOU with them, which took multiple discussions to get there. The other key provision that was a concern was the citizenship components. As a military school, we use a merit and demerit system, so positive points and negative points. If a student accumulates too many negative points, they can be told that they lose the right to come to this school because they've accumulated too many negative points. And, Los Angeles Unified was understandably concerned about wanting to make sure that we were compliant with both the letter and the spirit of charter law as it relates to, again, allowing it to be a school of choice, but also making sure that students were not arbitrarily dismissed, that the dismissal process included due process, that students had sufficient opportunities to remediate behaviors and to receive supports if they were struggling. And so we worked through all of those. We knew that they were going to be bumps in the road, and they were definite bumps in the road, but they were not insurmountable problems. And after extensive conversations with Los Angeles Unified leadership, including with Superintendent Daisy at the time, we were successfully able to get the charter and the MOU approved by the district.
Sometimes the MOUs seem like they're more of a negotiating process than the charter petition at times. I know we've gone through that.
That's absolutely true.
So in reality, since you've gone through that, how many kids have you had to deal with as far as expulsions that just didn't fit the program?
We have, the school has been operational as a North Valley Military Institute since July of 2013. I cannot think of an actual child that has been expelled for excessive demerits since the school transitioned to the military model. We've had some students who brought drugs on campus or tried to sell drugs on campus, and so those kids are subject to expulsion the same way they're subject to expulsion in any traditional public school. So non-charter public school. So and we've had a couple of expulsions for drugs or for weapons, but not because of excessive demerits.
It's pretty much been a non-issue then.
It's been a non-issue. And in fact, Los Angeles Unified leadership has been very positively impressed, I think, with how faithful we've been both to the letter and spirit of the MOU.
No, that's great. Yeah, I suspected as much. I know we went through a lot of. I worked for a charter school, and we went through a lot of the same things with the MOUs, and I know expulsion's a huge part of writing that charter. It's one of the larger sections, it seems like. Okay. Did you lose any students when you converted? Were there students that said, "Oh, I just don't want to go to"?
There were a handful of students that said, "I don't really want to go to a military school." We were actually very surprised at how many students stayed. It was more than 85% of the kids chose to stay, and we developed a transition plan. So we took the group of students for a week to Camp Pendleton for leadership development and for team building and to enculturate them to the culture of the new school. It was an extremely positive experience. The kids loved it. They came back jazzed. They became the leaders of the school in the following year, and it was a very. It turned out to be a really positive transition.
That's great. Okay, so you would say, generally speaking, the students have adopted the MVMI way of doing things.
Very much so.
Okay. See here. Did you have to overcome any issues with parent resistance to the conversion process?
There were a few parents that said, "This isn't a fit for me. I'm going to enroll my kid in another school." But by and large, this model is exceptionally appealing to parents. Parents appreciate the structure and discipline of a military school, and we've had nothing but overwhelmingly positive response from the parent community.
That's great. Now, when you started this school, when you were writing your charter petition, trying to get it approved, did you have to make many modifications to the original Oakland charter itself?
No. Basically, we were successful at getting all of the provisions that were essential to the model remain intact. And the Los Angeles Unified leadership team was actually really wonderful at supporting the process. Jose Col Gutierrez, who's the director of the charter school office, he and his staff, Dr. Perry being among them, were just really, they're educators. They want what's best for kids, and I think they saw, after all of the discussions, I think there was a lot of misconception and a lot of a lack of awareness about what the model really was. And once we answered all of those questions, I think people were like, "Oh, this sounds like a great thing. Let's make it happen." Seems like it's going to benefit students and be a very positive school of choice. And so, there was a lot of fear, I think, on the part of members of this school community, and as well as others in the larger charter community, saying, "Oh, you're going to have all these problems with LA Unified." And we were very, very pleased with the support that we received, and the very, very good questions that were appropriate for for an authorizer to ask, well, gee, how are you going to handle this? How are you going to handle that? Very, very appropriate, but handled very, very professionally.
Now, as far as the student population, is your student population different here than it was when you were in Oakland? As far as your demographics,
Well, the demographics in
culture.
Oakland were much more diverse. Many more African American and Asian students than there are here in the San Fernando Valley. Here, our demographic is more than 90% Hispanic. But that's reflective of the demographic of the San Fernando Valley. We are very reflective of the demographic of the community we serve, as was the Oakland school reflective of the demographic of the Oakland community.
Yeah, so you haven't had issues with that. It sounds like it was a natural fit because your demographic
Was
matched
very
and they came in
attractive.
and
The demographic was very attracted to the model. In fact, we're currently serving more than 20% special education students, and the school previously served about 20% special education students. So it's very this model appeals to many families, and we basically we pretty much take every kid that shows up on our doorstep. We don't turn anybody down. If a student comes and says, I really don't want to come to a military school, I won't wear a uniform, I won't salute the flag, that's a kid with whom we have a conversation about, well, if you're going to come here, you're going to have to do those things. And probably 9 times out of 10, we're able to successfully convince them that those things are not terribly onerous, and that if they do those things, that's going to help them be successful at getting into a college and succeeding in college. And so, we haven't had any real issues with the community saying that they want to get a kid into the school and we're not willing to take the kid. We take all comers.
yeah. The patriotism thing with public schools, there are always issues with that. But I respect it. We honor patriotism at my school as well.
And that was actually a source of some discussion in the LA Unified conversation, because they asked the question, well, what do you do with the kid who refuses to salute the flag? And what we said was, well, this is a school of choice. If you're going to choose to come to this school, walking into this school that patriotism is going to be one of those of the tenets of the school. And I used this example. I've used this in testimony before the state assembly and the state senate. If I'm running the Stockton Charter School for Violin Performance, and a kid comes to me and wants to play trumpet, but does not want to play violin, clearly this is not the right school for them. And if this is the Stockton School for Violin Performance, the kid's going to have to be willing to play the violin. And if they're not willing to play the violin, then they shouldn't come to this school. And that doesn't mean that the school doesn't want them, but if they aren't willing to abide by the ethos, the culture of the school, then it's not a good fit. Standing at attention when the flag goes up and wearing a military uniform and marching in parades is one of the things you're going to do in a military school. And if you walk into the school saying, I'm not going to do those things, then it's clear that that's not going to be a good fit. And those are families and kids who, prior to the application, admission, enrollment process, we hopefully have communicated clearly enough to a family, we'd love your child to come here if they're willing to fit into that culture. But if your child does not want to do those things, then this isn't a good fit. Let's save you and the child and the school the trouble of going through some whole process that is really a farce when your kid doesn't really want to play violin at the Stockton Violin Charter School. So, and I think for most people that makes sense. We have not had kids say, no, I'm not going to salute the flag. No, I'm not going to wear the uniform. No, I'm not going to go to the parade. That has not been an issue because we've done enough front-loading of information so that the kids and the parents and the community are aware this is what this school is all about.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. The the school I work at, it's more towards typical public school. We do wear uniforms, but we do get those people that come in every year that are new to the school that want to try and bring what they want into our culture. And sometimes there's a butting of heads, and somebody has to give.
Sure.
So that's quite interesting. Now, what is your process? Do you have like an annual parent information meeting or something over the summer for educating parents about your program here for the new?
Well, so there's two different pieces. Once a student is enrolled, all parents participate in a day-long orientation. We have 15 duties of an NVMI parent, and we educate parents on those duties. So those are things like making sure your child gets a decent breakfast and is provided with lunch either through our free federal breakfast and lunch program or from home. Making sure that you check your child's grades, making sure that your child uses the planner, making sure that that your child is present at school every day unless they're sick and have a legitimate reason to not be present at school. So once a child has enrolled, the parents participate in that day-long training. And parents generally find that to be extremely helpful because they get all the information they need to be a successful parent advocate for their child. And we believe that parents are the primary educators of their kids. And so if they get the training they need to be powerful, engaged parents, then the learning process is better for their kids. Before students ever enroll at the school, we walk them, we have an admissions guy whose job is to take every kid that wants to come here, bring them during school time to observe the campus, to take a tour, to learn about what the school's all about, to ask questions about the school. And we've discovered, after many years of doing this in Oakland and transferring the same concept here, that having a student come during the school day to observe what does morning formation look like, what do classrooms look like, what do passing periods look like, what do the bathrooms look like, those things are all very telling for a prospective student and family to know, is this the kind of school I want my kid to go to, or that I want to go to if I'm a 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader, whatever. So so that process is actually a really helpful process. So the kid and the parent come to these sessions, and we basically run them every day of the school year. They're starting the first day of school. We've got parents that are talking about enrolling their kid the following year, or at the semester, and the kids and parents come to that morning gaggle to learn about the school, to observe classrooms, observe formation, observe bathrooms, all those kinds of things, and then ask questions and get a presentation on what the school is all about. So we've actually found that to be a highly effective way to make sure that both kids and parents know the product that they're getting when they make the choice to come to the school.
It's interesting. So on the when you have your day-long parent orientation, do they come like on a Saturday? Okay, so that's very accommodating for the parents.
And then we videotape it. We make it available for parents that can't be here, and we run it bilingually so that families can, if they can't be here, they can watch it in videotape afterwards. We'll give it to them on a CD or a thumb drive, or we post it to the website so the parents can get a video stream of it.
That's great. So at this school, do you have a waiting list? Do you currently have a waiting list?
Well, not exactly. As I said, we basically take every kid who comes to our doorstep. If you come here and you say you want to enroll, then we sign you up for the next camp when the next camp is being run. So we ran a camp in November for students who in September and October said we're interested in coming to the school. We ran a camp. The camp's about a week, so we ran a camp in November, and then we brought all those students in November. We'll run another camp the first week in January 5th through the 9th, for any student who wants to enroll here second semester. So we pretty much, we can't, for resource reasons, we can't run camps, every week. But we basically will run the camps when we've got a critical mass of kids that's interested in the school. We'll run a camp so that we can enroll those students. And originally we committed to the district that we'd run at least one mid-year camp a year. This year we're doing at least 2, and we may do 3 depending on how much interest there is. But the largest camp is the summer encampment, in which last year 300 kids came to that.
Since it is a military institute, do you get kids referred here that have had trouble in conventional public schools, or they're
We do get some of those referrals, and again, we take everybody. So there are kids who come here with ankle bracelets. There are kids who come here with a court order that says succeed in this school or go to juvenile hall. And again, our objective is to, if a kid wants to come here and is willing to try their best, we will do everything in our human power to help them be successful here and to fit into the model. And the model is all about getting them into college and making them successful in college. So, we get lots of gifted kids who want a highly rigorous, academically challenging environment that's going to prepare them for entry to West Point or Annapolis or the Air Force Academy or the Coast Guard Academy or Harvard or Yale or Stanford or any of these top Tier 1 universities. At the same time, we get kids who show up with the ankle bracelet on who are really struggling from a societal perspective in terms of their citizenship, their behavior, their conduct. But if they show up and they say, I'm willing to try, we take them all.
That's an interesting mix. You mentioned the gifted kids who want to get into West Point. Now, I would assume a school like this would give a kid a leg up if they go through 6-7 years here.
We have an excellent partnership with all of the service academies, and we actually have a great arrangement with those service academies to prepare students for direct entry into the academies, all of them.
That's awesome. Okay, so what has been your greatest challenge as a charter school leader? It could be anything. What's the
facilities? We're on a campus right now. I'm saying this on videotape so that when the videotape gets subpoenaed and and you have to produce it to the people. You now have videotaped evidence of my criminal activity. In that I've got more kids here than while I'm meeting the city fire code. I'm not breaking that. I've actually got more kids here than our CUP allows and our conditional use permit. And we are looking for other sites. We're working with LA Unified through the Prop 39 process to try to get one or more additional sites for next school year. But facilities are a real challenge. We've got 400 kids here right now. We've got we should have 600 kids here next year, and ideally this campus was built for about 200. And so we need to find a place that will allow us to expand the way that the community interest seems to be demanding. But facilities are, for many charter leaders, and I am involved in a number of ways in leadership within the charter movement. I serve on the Advisory Commission for Charter Schools for the State Board of Ed, and I work with the California Charter School Association. And I will tell you that a great many charter schools have trouble with facilities, and we are unfortunately among them.
Yeah, I've been through the fight myself, so I hear what you're saying. I know when we started our school, we had a heck of a time getting, and we didn't even know about Prop 39 when we first started out. We were just some teachers that were going to start a school, so we learned the hard way. So I feel your pain. So that being said, what has been your greatest success as a charter school leader? What do you take the most pride in?
Well, I am a major architect of this model, the military school model here in California. I worked with a gentleman by the name of Bruce Holliday, who was my predecessor at OMI. He's a brilliant school leader who really came from Culver Military Academy in the private sector. And with all the great foundational work that Bruce laid at OMI, I was able to kind of take it to the next level and to really solidify the model. And now we know that the model works when replicated because we see what it's doing here. And so I would say that's probably my biggest success is having been the primary architect of the model and the ability to have successfully replicated it.
One of the challenges that we face at my charter school is teacher retention. So have you had this challenge at NVMI or at OMI, and what have you done to address it?
Occasionally, teachers are going to leave because, their spouse gets relocated or, they get some better offer for something somewhere else. In general, it has not been a problem in Oakland, and it's not been a problem here in the limited time that we've had this model. That's not to say that people don't leave, because they do. I had a teacher leave at the end of the first quarter. So it does happen. In general, if we are successful in the hiring process, we make sure that people know what the model is and isn't, so that people know what they're getting into as a teacher, and that makes it makes for a more successful experience for that teacher and for the students that those teachers is educating. So, in general, teacher retention has not been it's certainly not been a problem in Oakland, and it wasn't a problem here. The biggest challenge with retention is salary. In my professional opinion, we need to be competitive with our traditional public school counterparts. We are public school educators, but we're educating a different population of students within this subset of public schools that's called charter schools. And we really ought to be, in my opinion, on par with our public school counterparts. A teacher should be able to transition back and forth between a charter school and a traditional public school and be able to get the same quality benefits, the same quality salary, and that is not necessarily the case in a lot of charter schools. And I, for one, am an advocate here, just as I was an advocate in Oakland of creating a salary scale that was on par with the local public school districts. I'm an advocate of doing that here, and we are in the process of doing that here, so that teachers don't have to sacrifice salary and benefits to work in a public charter.
So are you a union shop or
we are not. We are not, and I don't have anything against unions, but I also think that a lot of things can be done without unions. If you have a positive collegial relationship between the governing board and the school administration and the faculty and the staff, you don't need a union. You just need a collegial relationship, and you need people on the same page about how to get to the desired end state. So we're not union here. We were not union in Oakland, and I'm not in favor of a charter school becoming unionized unless the school community believes that that's in the best interest of the school community. And if that's what the school community believes, then that's, these are schools of choice, and I think that if that's what the community wants, then that's okay. But in general, I believe if you've got positive rapport between governing boards, school administration, faculty, and staff, then it's sort of a non-issue.
Okay. So if you bring on a new teacher, do you have some form of like BITSA program at NVMI or?
We're currently participating in the LA Unified MITSA program.
Okay, so teachers go through the 2-year program, and okay. What additional training do you have to put your teachers through?
Well, everybody goes through an orientation program into the military culture and our standard operating procedures and all the components of what our unique citizenship program is, our unique leadership development program, the unique elements of our academic program. So every faculty member and staff member gets trained at that. And then we do provide specific training in the finer points of our merit-demerit system, in our use of the planner, expectations about how we use technology at the school, those kinds of things.
Now, as far as succession planning, do you have a succession plan at school? If so, how does that work?
There is not a formal succession plan in place here right now. We did have a succession plan in place in Oakland, and which was implemented on my departure there. I'm relatively new here, and so it is one of the things that's on the radar of the board, but it's not a. We're hoping that I don't get run over by a bus between now and the time the succession plan actually gets fully fleshed out.
What does your salary schedule look like? How do you have like a step and column process based upon teachers' education?
So what we've done here is in a way very similar to step and column at LA Unified or in most public school districts. We've got a we have a scale that we use as the. Basically what I did is I took the Oakland scale and brought it here and said, well, let's see what we can do to at least get people on this scale in this 14-15 school year. The board has not adopted a formal salary scale moving forward because we haven't we just have not had sufficient funds to adopt the scale. What we're doing right now with salaries is each person who was here previously, we looked at where they would be on the LA Unified scale, and we tried this year to bump everybody at least 10% of the way to that number. So people who were here previously, which is the vast majority of the staff, we had hired very, very few new staff. All of those people we said, sorry, we're a military school, so bugle calls go off during the middle of everything. But we took where everybody would be on the LA Unified scale, took their current salary, bumped them all 10%. Then promised them that we would do our best to continue bumping up to the LA Unified level to the extent that the LCFF, the Local Control Funding Formula, dollars would allow. So we did that for this year. I cannot speak exactly to what's going to happen next year, but our idea is that ultimately everybody would be on the exact same position, and that we would in essence adopt the LA Unified scale as our charter school scale. We're not there yet, but we did move people forward.
So that scale is similar. It's based upon education
Years of
and years of experience. Okay. Do you have a merit pay system? Do you give bonuses of some sort?
We do not currently have a merit pay system. In Oakland, we actually did do we experimented with a form of merit pay with varying results, some of which were positive, some of which were negative. We've not done any of that here. I'm relatively new, and I've got a bunch of other bigger fish to fry. At some point, we may talk about, explore some merit-based pay concepts, but merit pay is, as you well know, is a very controversial issue. It's something it's very aligned with a business model, not necessarily an education model. There's perceived pros and cons to merit pay. So I don't know how this school community would react to it. Again, I haven't even brought it up yet because I've got so many other things to
It
worry
can
about.
sometimes be a little subjective, quite subjective.
Well, the biggest thing is, what are the criteria upon which merit is based? For instance, you can absolutely base merit on very objective criteria like student test scores, but student test scores aren't necessarily reflective of individual teacher effort exclusively, and so you can base it on growth models, but growth models too aren't necessarily entirely predicted and or affected by individual teachers. So it's what we did in Oakland was we looked at we had a multifaceted merit pay concept. So we looked at the extent to which student attendance was a factor in merit pay. Benchmark scores, so individual teacher scores between quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 was a factor. Standardized, California Standards Test scores was a factor. Percentage of kids that met proficiency. Bumps in proficiency. So if you went from far below basic to below basic, that was a bump. So there was some bumps associated with that. Classroom observation data. So the faculty would we do lots of frequent classroom walkthroughs, and overall averages of percentage of students engaged in all those frequent classroom walkthroughs.